Hey, what's going on? Josh White here. Before we get into this clip, I wanted to give you a quick update on myself. I've been working an insane amount of hours during COVID ops here at Eglin Air Force Base, but it has been a very cool and engaging job, but very, very time consuming. So I am slacking a little bit on my podcast. I hope I don't have to quit doing it at any point in time, but I will say it has been getting really, really tough. This Friday, I'm talking to a friend of mine named Master Sergeant Oris Key. He's not on social media. That's part of what we're going to talk about, actually, but he is such an interesting guy, full of wisdom, and I know that that episode is going to be phenomenal. But before we get to that point, this Friday, I'm going to play a clip of my good friend, Bryan Boomsauce Holm, who is doing so many big things in the community. And if you want to hear more about the special and unique project that he just started, listen to the end of this clip and I will give you that update. Let's get after it.
And that's something that a lot of people haven't had in the Air Force, is just that psychological safety of knowing, like, hey, these people actually care about me. And when that happens, all kinds of good things.
You have to have the courage to say it.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be, it takes a certain level of courage and vulnerability to tell someone you appreciate them, you care about them, and you've got their back. That is not a common thing people say. For me personally, it took a lot of failures, a lot of struggles, and a lot of being comfortable in my own skin to be able to say that to someone's face or a group of people, right? I definitely wasn't an airman saying it. I can tell you that. I wasn't even an NCO saying it yet, really. I had to kind of find my own path. What is your thoughts like on you being able to share that kind of care and compassion that's so not common, because it's just such a vulnerable thing to do? How did you get to the point where you were able to express yourself that way?
I think that this also probably goes along the lines with the fact that I wear unicorn leggings. Like, this was not a me thing for forever. My dad was Air Force and we moved around a lot, so I got to experience a lot of different cultures. We lived in Europe for a while. I lived in the very deep South in Alabama, and he ended up retiring near Scott Air Force Base, so near St. Louis. I experienced a lot, and then once I got to a place where I was comfortable with who I was, I kind of, just like I was saying before, was stepping back and saying, well, hey, what's important to me? And what's important to me is being me. And that has never been the thing that wants, like, I don't want to fit in with everyone. Not that that's bad, but that's just not who I am. I'm always someone who has stood out a little bit and done something a little bit crazy. And well, that kind of transferred over to how I lead people too. Like, I've never been afraid to say, hey, I messed up, right? Or, hey, you're super important to me. How can we fix this? It's never occurred to me that that's not the right or the normal thing to do, right? I think it's the right thing to do, but the normal thing to do is not to open up and not to say those things. It's more like, hey, I got to protect my image because I'm being rated against all the people that I work with. And if I stand here and I say, hey, I messed up, someone's going to look at me and say, oh, well, we don't want them to be the next tech sergeant or the next master sergeant. We want the person who never messes up. And that's an unfortunate side effect of the way our performance reports have gone and the way our culture in the Air Force has gone.
Yeah, man, that's pretty deep. But yeah, being comfortable in your own skin, being authentic and just the best version of yourself, that takes a tremendous amount of work. And I see how dedicated you are to, like, your workouts. I mean, hell, I worked out today because I saw one of you running in freaking body armor. So I said, I better get my fat butt out the door and at least go for a jog if Boomsauce has got a weighted vest. But you're very dedicated, man. You're definitely, the way you father your children and the way you are as a husband, and from everything that I'm seeing and learning about you, I can definitely tell you're the type to forge your own path, and I respect that. I see myself in a similar light, and I think that's what drew me to want to connect with you, is because I love that uniqueness, that forging your own path, that openness. That takes a lifetime of work to get to that point, in my opinion. So I wanted to talk about something that you didn't even mention on here, and I'm pretty surprised about it, honestly, is your photography. Like, my God, man, you are an insane photographer. You are so talented, not just because of the types of shots that you have, but just the thought process that you put into the uniqueness of the shot. So I was hoping you could kind of speak a little bit about your photography journey, and then also the project that you recently did that the Airman Wing, or the Airman NCO Senior NCO page, reposted, not as a dig, because they're kind of known for controversy. This was more of a positive post from the page, which is really cool, that you
Yeah.
got on their radar for something positive. So I wanted you to kind of expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't want to go too much like past, like we bought a camera just for fun when our kids were born, and we were like, hey, we want to capture this. And then I kind of just took to it. Right. And I started watching YouTube videos, and I wanted to learn everything I could to make our pictures of our kids the best that we possibly could. And then people started asking me, hey, can you take pictures of this and this? And I love doing family photography or couple photography, but that's not my passion. My passion, along with everything, is how I can help people. So I started using photography to do that, like tackling some very tough subjects. A lot of that had to do with the mental health stuff that we'll talk about later on, but I just wanted to find ways to capture that, because people are very visual, and when they see things, they get a response deep in their gut. And it kind of all started right around the same time as the Air Force Wingman Outreach page did. I decided at Offutt, I was going to do something. So in the Air Force, we had all these suicides happening. This was 2 years ago, and it was starting to be really big news. And we were at like 89 people. And I was like, that's a lot of people, but I don't think people realize how many people that is. So we had this crazy idea that we were going to get 89 people in uniform and take them into the hangar at Offutt and put them in a pile, right? And just like laying there like they're dead, and take a picture of it, have it real dark with just like a light shining down on it. And everyone was like, yes, we want to do this. I had like 200 people there, like, we'll be there, right? And it was like a week before we were going to do it, and it got really big, and the news got to the command chief, and this is Chief Thomas at Offutt, who's an amazing leader. He was like, hey, can we talk about this before you do it? Because my job is to make sure that we're protecting, the wing commander and the image of the base. And so he had an open house town hall, and we all sat down, like there was like 200 people there, and we sat and we talked about mental health issues and why we wanted to do this project and why it was so important for people to see what was really happening in the military. And that was the moment where I changed everything. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to use photography to address the topics that people are afraid to talk about. And so I've done a bunch of different.
Isn't that amazing how like one door or one idea leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another, and pretty soon you're in this whole nother place with this idea that you had a year ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I made an event like, hey, we're going to take this picture, and then the next thing I know, it's like 2 weeks later, and we're sitting in the theater with the command chief.
Yeah,
and he's like, hey, talk to me. And he shared some very vulnerable stories about his own struggles with mental health that were amazing and really opened people's eyes. So it was great. So I've done a bunch of projects with my wife Cheryl, and those have been pretty big. They've been shared all over and addressing mental health. So then recently, actually my commander here at DM threw me under the bus. He came in the office and he was like, hey, by the way, I volunteered you to do this thing. And I was like, oh, okay, what is it? And he's like, you're going to go be the photographer for this Black History Month heritage flight that we're going to do for the Compass Call. So I went out there that day, and we took some pictures of them going through their normal daily routine, and I shared them on Facebook, and somehow they got to the Airman NCO Senior NCO page, which, like you said, there's a lot of toxicity that comes from that page, but there's also a lot of amazing things that happen there. And I was afraid, as soon as I saw it post, I was like, in my throat, I was like, oh God, this is going to be terrible. And I came home and I made sure my blues were okay, just in case. But it overwhelmingly, it was amazing. People were like, this is great. We love to see this. And I think it's, again, going back to that visual that people have is just seeing the faces of people. People were afraid to get real negative on there, right? Those were real people doing real jobs and going through their actual flight. And so people were very afraid to say, oh, this is racist or whatever it is that I see on all the other ones. Because they shared a very similar story today about the J-Stars doing a heritage flight, and it got negative really fast. And I think it's because it's a story and not visual images.
Yeah, you do an amazing job at like just drawing people in to the photos. Like you with the heritage flight that you posted, you could see the joy on their faces. You could see, you really got to be in their shoes for a minute and see like from their perspective, like what it meant to them. Like it's amazing how like your photos speak to you in so many different ways without using words. Like it's kind of incredible. And then your wife Cheryl too is amazing at working with you with the mental health photos. Like just she's almost like an actress, the way she can really show the pain in the photo and the way you capture it and the angles that you use. It's amazing what you've done to communicate messages with no words, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible. So
yeah,
I definitely wanted to touch on that during this conversation. I think it's pretty amazing. And for anyone listening, you got to check this guy's photos out. Is there any place they can go to find your photos?
There are, like, I have a Facebook page, Get Exposed Photography. That's really more like, I don't have a good place for like the journalistic pieces that I like doing or the message pieces. That's more like I take family pictures and I post them there. But you can find a whole bunch of them on Airman NCO, Senior NCO.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, man. I kind of want to roll into our first topic here of personal performance versus organizational excellence. Do you want to speak on that a little bit now?
Yeah. So I guess this goes into basically my entire story.
Thanks for listening to that clip in its entirety, and I owe you a hug. Now, what Bryan Holm is doing is a nonprofit organization called Lil Acts, LILACTS. I want you to go to lilacts.org to check out this nonprofit. Their belief is that even the smallest acts can change the world when multiplied enough. And the things that Bryan has done for his community, his family, his wingmen, and complete strangers has been nothing short of an absolute miracle. Him and his wife, Cheryl, are absolute game-changer human beings and people who we all could learn a thing or two from. So thank you for listening to my good friend Bryan, but you have to check out lilacts.org. They're also on Facebook, and see how you can get involved with this amazing new initiative that Bryan and Cheryl Holm have created down at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, Arizona. All right, y'all, I'll catch you next Wednesday on the next episode of Hero Front. Y'all take care.